Hi. Welcome to the Human Design for Marketing podcast. I'm your host, Yvette Mayer, and this show's for you if you're done with cookie cutter marketing and ready to build your personal brand in alignment with who you really are. Let's dive in. Hello, welcome back to the Human Design for Marketing podcast with Yvette Mayer. Yes, that's me. And this week, you're also having a very special guest on. So I'm excited to share Kylie Patchett with you. She's come to me. We've spoken many times about human design and marketing. I've been on her podcast. She's quite the human design nerd as well as entrepreneur, business owner. And we're going to talk about the transits a lot on this episode, actually. But before we do that, I would love to hand it over to Kylie to properly introduce herself, what she does, and share a bit about her design with us. Over to you.
Ooh, okay, that's a big question. All right, so I'm Kylie. I live in country Queensland in Australia. I'm a country bumpkin at heart in my own little bubble. And I'm a brand copy and content storyteller and a voice and visibility coach, mainly working with healers, helpers, and creatives. So I like to say the rebels, the revolutionaries, the paradigm shifters, the thought leaders. They are my people. I am a status quo challenger by design, I reckon. Actually, that's an interesting conversation. I don't know, human design, but so my deep passion is helping the people that have got massive, big, different ways of looking at things, different paradigms that they're wanting the world to understand and shift into, potentially have, not always, but potentially have some visibility or voice, like messaging blocks around that. They can't quite figure out how to get that to a lot more people. So about impacting a lot more people and having more influence, and also obviously more income, because that's what comes with that. I am a generator. I'm a 3-5 generator. Yeah, same as you. I feel like it should be like a ring or something that you clink together. I'm a 3-5 design. So I came across human design through a different container that I was in few years ago now. And just discovering that a 3-5 is literally meant to like snack on life and try things for size, and trial and error learn, or a 3, I know that's the 3 part. That was like the biggest shift in my self-identity, because I had spent an entire lifetime making myself wrong for not sticking to things. So I was a forensic biologist back in the 90s. I still have people, in fact, I was holidaying with one last week, still have friends that are in that same career.
Wow.
I've literally had 17 careers since then. But I had this kind of self inner critical, whatever you want to call it, saying, if you could just stick at something, you could really make a go of this. And I'm like, I would get bored. Like the thought of still being in forensic makes me want to stick a fork in my eye, like literally.
Wow.
Like I just cannot imagine being in a lab coat, in a fume hood, by myself, not talking to people, not communicating, just not my cup of tea. So so that is my intro to human design. That's really been the driving force behind using it as a reference point for better understanding myself, and realizing that it doesn't matter how much I want to be like XYZ person who does it this way, I'm not, and that's okay, you know.
Such a beautiful permission slip.
So good.
And I know that a big part of your work, and it evolves, but has been about communicating and storytelling and writing, which I love, because I always say that the most important element in your marketing as a line 3 is telling stories.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and you have a line 3, stories, I mean, they're everything anyway. And I know I might actually throw to you, because I'm about to go on a rant right now about how
rant.
I'd like to invite you to tell us about the power of storytelling, because this is your gig.
I didn't realize that the 3 was a storyteller part anyway. The reason, so I have worked in health science, medical, community services, and mining industries across my career. And I've always ended up in roles where I'm either leading teams or region, training, educating, marketing, communicating in some, I've always ended up being in those roles, like in many, many, many different sectors. And I realized that even back, like in the early or was it the late 90s or early 2000s? I used to be a university lecturer and I was lecturing in forensic biology, like
Sounds
genetics. Like,
right.
can you imagine? Anyway, but I remember even then as a lecturer, I was using stories to help people remember things because our brains, there is this beautiful center in our brain that lights up when someone says, you know, the other day I was at the shops and da da da, because the person listening is then picturing themselves in the story, or they're relating to something that you're saying, or they're going, oh, that sucks. That is not how I see that. But the story gives us context to either engage and relate and, you know, build that know, like, and trust, or to be repelled. And that is what we want in our marketing. So like my biggest thing is stop trying to be everyone's cup of tea. Be I don't know, whatever you are, the maca, you know, the half strength with the twist of whatever. Yeah, because being like, storytelling allows you to be the you-iest version of you.
The you-iest version of you.
Well, or like I often say to clients, like the truthiest truth, and they're like, what? And I'm like, I don't want to know the surface level. When we're talking about copy and content, don't tell me about you know, someone feeling more confident. I want you to actually tell me a story of how they're feeling right now when they look in the mirror versus how, when they work with you, they are going to be completely transformed. But completely transformed doesn't tell me anything. Tell me a story of the before and the after, and then your offer or your coaching or your whatever is the bridge between the two, right? That's so much easier to invite someone to. And so I always think, like, I use the term all the time, cookie cutter copywriting. And I have had a couple of copywriters I've been in containers with get a bit like, but what I mean by that is copywriting by formula. And this is where the human design comes in as well. Copywriting by formula, using someone else's step-by-step framework, is great. Often that's the framework that works for them. They might be a completely different design to you. And then you go away and try and replicate it. And it's not the truthiest truth of you because you're trying to do it someone else's way. So your energy is completely misaligned. But also, you know, it just doesn't feel good. And when your marketing doesn't feel good, guess what? You don't market. So therefore, you don't share your offers. You don't make, you know, connections with people. You don't magnetize the right collaborations. Like, magnetism.
It's the whole lesson of the frequency project, actually.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's what I was about to say. The frequency.
You have to be aligned.
Yes.
When you're in alignment, your frequency increases, and then people feel that energy from you.
Absolutely.
It is so magnetic and powerful, and that's so bang on. And I know that you're really into human design, but just to hear you use some of this language, it's a very
I tell you, like, when you say frequency, like, if I'm working with someone, and I mostly work with very woo people anyway, so I don't have to kind of like water down my woo-ness because I'm full woo with a side of science, which is a weird combination. Anyway,
I love it.
But I lost my train of thought then, sorry.
When you're working with people.
Oh, yeah. So if I need to explain it in non-frequency or energy words, I say, imagine that your copy and your content and your branding or your visual brand identity is putting out a bat signal. And the bat, you know, everyone knows the bat signal. Well, everyone of our vintage knows the bat signal. And what that bat signal is doing is creating an attraction point, right? You're putting up this bat signal in the sky, and the people that need you want your bat signal. So if you're using someone else's version of things or someone else's way of communicating or any sort of formulaic one-size-fits-all magic pill solution, which makes me want to vomit, it is not you that you're putting out there. So by definition, that bat signal is talking to the wrong people, the clients that aren't a good fit for you, or they're not ready for the level of work you are. And the other thing, and this is where my voice and visibility comes in a lot, is often when I'm working with someone, it's at the stage in their brand or business journey where they've maybe they've DIY'd or they've done something at a certain sort of level, and they're being called into this next evolution, right? There's something that is bubbling up from underneath the surface, and it is wanting to be expressed out there. And that is when that, can I really say that? Do I really know enough? No one said it like this before. Like, by definition, if you're shifting paradigms, there's probably not anyone else or not a
friction in that.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and I'm in the middle of writing a book at the moment, and I just wrote a chapter about you have to go first, right? So if you are inviting someone to step into, well, for me, this is a perfect example. It's like the inside of the inside. Like I'm writing a chapter about going first, and this is the very first time I've talked about voice and visibility coaching, because I've been in the closet as a coach, because I used to coach in my first business all the time. But what I'm seeing a pattern of is people at that evolution point. And I'm like, storytelling and brand and copy and content, all the magic that does can take you a certain level. But if you don't have alignment with being seen and heard as a thought leader, as a revolutionary, as the, the simmering up, then you've got a problem. And that's when coaching comes in. So I'm like, you know what? I have to come out of the closet, because there's so many tools in my coaching toolbox that will help with that. So I'm like, bring it. The world is in a pretty bad
place. I might be asking you a question that you're not ready to share, but is that
good.
Is that what your book's about?
Yes, it is. It's about yes. It's the book originally started as me interviewing 8 rebels and revolutionaries and thought leaders, and kind of showcasing how storytelling is the magnetic force that draws the right people. But it has actually turned into, and this is where the inside of your own message comes, this distillation of a whole new evolution of what I'm doing. So I'm right in the middle of the vortex of like, holy F balls. Okay.
So what's happening?
Yeah.
I know you're not a manifesting generator, but gee, you speak like one.
This is we had that conversation by voice note the other day. I'm like, why do I get so excited about so many different things?
I mean, I have not unpacked your chart at a deep level. I've glanced at it. So I know you've got a couple of throat-centered gates. And actually, if you're listening to this and you're resonating with, and maybe you're a generator and you're like, I also have all these ideas and change directions and evolve all the time. There are so many aspects to your design beyond your type that can speak to and will speak to why. And for you, being a 3-5 profile definitely is very aligned as well with how you're expressing yourself. The other thing with generators is we have this thing called a generator plateau. So we tend to go after something to the point of mastery. Like we don't give up easily. We go after it. We go to the point of mastery, and then we can get a bit bored.
All the time. That's why I've had 17 careers, literally, because I've hit 2.5 years and I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah, it's a little different in that Mani-gens are more likely to start and stop and change direction midway, whereas generators tend to keep going until they've mastered something. And then it is really back to, can I reignite my spark for this?
Yes.
Can I tweak and keep going and stay in this field, this niche, whatever that looks like for you, or do I need to reinvent? And so if you're listening to this as a generator type and you're resonating with some of this, you're either in a generator plateau.
Yeah, I've never heard of that before. That makes very much sense to me.
Yes. And that means it's time for you to come back to why you do what you do. And like, there are so many ways that you can reignite your spark for what you're doing and stay the course. Or you are literally being prompted gently by the universe to evolve.
Nudge, nudge. Yeah, I had this, this is going to sound so obvious as a generator, but I had this like literal bright light in my mind the other night. I was thinking about my to-do list in business, and I play this game with myself sometimes when I'm just about to step up into a new level. I play the overwhelm game. So then my brain goes, oh, so much to do. And I do think that that's a little bit of the neurosparkly side of me as well, that my brain is, likes to go, oh, squirrel, oh, whatever. But I noticed this pattern and I was like, you know what? I'm not really available for this anymore. Like, this just feels like it's the same self-sabotage spiral that I go into, and blah, 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 keep yourself safe, keep yourself small, keep yourself protected. Exactly the same sort of stuff that I'm talking about with clients. And I had this moment where I was journaling out it was something that was given to me by my coach of like, you know, pacing yourself, like going 10 years back, 3 years back, and 1 year back in your timeline, and talking about like, what did you say yes to? What did you say no to? What were your values? What was your life like, etc. And then also going forward 1, 3, and 10 years. And I had this moment where I was doing the 10-year in the future, and I was like, oh my God, I have been doing the exact same thing that I was just talking about with the formula in my business, like trying to sort of not replicate other people's ways of doing things, but thinking that there's a right way to do it, right? And there isn't a right way to do business. There's literally a billion, infinite options. And I was like, what if I just decided right now that joy was my business strategy? What if I just let myself do...
So you're going to follow what lights you up?
100%. That's the thing. And I'm like, this is what lights me up, is like, yes, the brand, the copy, the content, all of that storytelling, and also with the energy and the frequency and the somatic work, so that people can be released to actually unleash their full selves into the world. Because I'm like, there's no fun, and especially when the world is in, you know, such a tricky state. Yes. Like it's a cluster F. I'm really trying not to swear, so sorry. But yeah, I think allowing yourself, particularly as a generator, to follow that juiciness and squeeze the juice out of it is like more than enough of a strategy. And I
just
always
that pumping alone.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I was doing this thing, was like, oh, but people won't, you know, what if, but then you're moving direction a bit, who cares? No one is looking at you as much as we think they are, for starters.
So true. Now, a couple of things that have just sparked for me while you're talking. We've just been in, and I'm going to get into transits now.
Yes.
We've just been in the 48, which is the gate of depth.
Yes.
And as you were talking, I'm like, okay, so when she was experiencing this, we're in the 48, and the low frequency of the 48 is doubting that you know enough.
Just reading it in my spreadsheet going, this is freaking hilarious. This is a perfect example. Yep.
And it's interesting, right? Because I also had moments, and I've had, you know, if you listen to the podcast, you know I haven't had a great last week.
No.
But anyway, I've also had a couple of moments where I'm like, I'm feeling the low frequency of the 48, whereas, you know, the high frequency of the 48 is actually that self-recognition and remembrance that you have all the resources you need, that you're more than enough. So I thought I'd bring that up because it really does speak to exactly in real time the effect of the transit. And then now where we're moving to, if you happen to be listening to this, we've just moved into the 57 today. One of my favorite gates, for no reason outside of, I just find that it's one of those you can't make this up gates, that almost every single person that I've ever read for, worked with, that has the 57 has this incredible intuitive power. And they tend to be working in, like, they're a psychic or a tarot reader. Like, it's just one of the gates. I'm like, of course you've got
like the signpost gate. It's like, yep, you do that big work.
So with the transits, as we move into the 57, this really is a time to be getting out of your head and feeling into, here's how I define the 57, the sense.
Ooh, I like that.
Into your spidey sense. Like, and people with the 57, they tend to like have a nose for when something is not quite right.
Yep.
And that is more in the negative. It's like this uneasy feeling. Settled feeling is in the low frequency, but then the high frequency is trusting that sense of, this is right for me. And
that makes so much sense.
Feeling the clarity come through.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd segue into the transits because Kylie and I, you know, we've chatted many times over recent months, all things human design nerding. And when I brought to the market the 64 Cosmic Content Codes guide, she was all over it.
I
And
was.
like
I was like,
many of
yep.
you listening, I think super excited to have this as a resource to help with
Absolutely.
content. If you're newer to this topic, I will briefly share what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So
Please explain.
yes, one of the major bodies of work that I've created, probably the biggest since moving towards human design for marketing, is looking at every single gate, and there are 64, as a content code. So that's already good, but the way that we can work with this is to really understand as the human design transits through each gate, which happens across a 12-month period, just like in astrology, where we move through the astrological calendar through 12 star signs.
Like the wheel.
Like once a month, we change star signs. Well, in
Yes.
human design transits, the gates move through the sun every 6 days rather than every month.
Yes.
So every 6 days, we go into a new frequency that is kind of like the background weather as far as
oh, I like that too.
Yeah, it's like the background weather around how people are tuned in to different energies and likely to be feeling, thinking, experiencing.
I like that.
So with that, with how I've brought this work through, I have a new gate released into the world as a content code in alignment with when the transits move into into position into the sun.
Yes.
So as I've just spoken about, right now, today, we will be releasing a Gate 57 YouTube episode, which will take you through the high frequency of the 57, the low, and then the piece de la resistance is
the genius.
Yes.
Like, I would love to know the story actually behind how you, when you were delivered this, like, oh, this is what I need to do with this. Anyway.
Yeah, I'll share that. Because it's a really cool story. But yeah, this has become something that I do in the Facebook group. If you're not in the Facebook group, go to the show notes and join it. YouTube, it's like we're nearly at the end of the whole 64 gates. So every single gate is going to be on YouTube. We have a blog post that comes out in alignment with all of this every 6 days as well. Like, it's a huge part of what I do. But we went next level a couple of months ago when we released the entire body of work around the prompts, the actual content prompts, as a product. So you can now buy the 64 Cosmic Content Code Guide, which comes with a page that details everything about that particular code, let's call it, and a bunch of content prompts so that you can be working with this energy all freaking year long, week in, week out.
And get the keys to the content queendom. That's how I think about it.
Oh, I love
it's
that
like, this is because I think, anyway, I'll let you finish because then I'll share how I use it. Sorry.
But this is why Kylie is here, because she's like you and like many of you listening, she bought this and it's changed her life. And she's told me on a number of occasions how it's the best system she's ever found to create content.
100%.
And I thought, you know what? I know what we're all like. We're busy humans. Some of you will have bought this and not done a whole lot with it. And I decided that it would be so freaking valuable for you to hear about, and this is not from me, I'm not selling you it. This is from somebody who has this, who is using it week in, week out, how she does it. So we'll do that. And then after that, I will share at the end how this happened, how this actually.
Yeah, I would love to, because I am always, I feel like
story,
the bodies of work. Yeah, exactly. The story, but the bodies of work that come to us, you could have very easily, when that idea came, gone, oh no, too big or too, like, who am I or whatever, bloody blah, blah, blah. So I would love to know the story because it will demonstrate how you have to say yes and go first, as I am writing about. Okay, so I write a lot of copy for a lot of different people. So when it comes to my own social media and my own messaging, sometimes I'm like, oh, for God's sake, I don't have any more words. Like, I literally, and the way that I see, and I do think this is, again, a neurosparkly thing, but when I'm working with a new client, they feel to me like a color or a texture or feeling or an energy. And when we have our first half day together, I don't know, I feel like I can slip back into that signature and write from their perspective, right? So
Like being
because
an
I do
actress.
that, yeah, well, it is, I don't know, I was working with a beautiful healer, Sarah Brooke, and she said, you know, that you're actually, oh, now I've forgotten what she called it. Anyway, she called it something. I was like, oh, that sounds way too clever for me. Anyway, whatever. Shape shifting. No, that wasn't
Yeah.
that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the thing is that sometimes, because I'm doing that a lot, it can be more tricky for me to actually even get back into my own message. And I think that that's not uncommon. Like if you're a plumber, you've got leaky taps. If you're a copywriter like me, sometimes your copy sucks.
I mean, I'm way better at helping other people with their
Exactly,
marketing.
you know, well, because exactly. So so my team have long had a spreadsheet that's social media. I always encourage all my clients to have what I call a content bucket. So just somewhere, and I use Google because I like that you can get to it, everything, but wherever it is, where you just dump ideas as they come to you. And often I will get woken up in the middle of the night with literally 70 ideas of posts, and I'll be like, not now, I want to sleep. But I will often be like, whack it all on my phone. Sometimes it makes no sense because I'm typing without glasses on. That's fine. So I've always had a content bucket, and that has been good for me because as a generator, rather than just coming up with an idea, for me to look at a list and go, that's something that inspires me.
Respond to it.
Yeah. So I've done that for a while, but then when I got your download, I asked my team to put an extra 2 columns in the spreadsheet, and it has what gate we're in and then the content prompts. The gate column has the like you were saying, the shadow and the gift, and then the next one has the content prompts. And that just gives me another layer of, it's kind of like, yes, that idea sparks me, but then the cosmic codes give me like a lens through which to look at it too, or like, what perspective do I want to write about this? Exactly. And it makes, like, I'm a bit late for my October content, but I did all of my October content last night using this system. So, and then we also have like, column for hashtags and blah, blah, blah. I love a system. I love a system, but I just find it is fascinating because it is not only easier for people to consume and respond to that content when you are actually in the same energy of whatever gate that we're in, but it just makes it fun. And coming back to joy is my business strategy. Sitting down to write social media content up until a couple of months ago when I started doing it this way was always something that I just kept on moving, like every day in my project management software. And I'm like, I do this we literally provide done for you social media.
The easiest thing I do, not the hardest.
But for me, and again, that comes back to, voice and visibility blocks of my own, like, just talking about what you do and blah, blah, blah. It's way easier to blow someone else's trumpet than it is to blow yours. But yeah, this just gives me, and then we've taken it to a new level. And this was not instigated by me. This is instigated by my amazing Phoenix, who's on my team, that basically she decided that she would go into the content bucket, which is one tab, and then kind of drop in ideas that kind of already align with the gates ahead of time. So she is now in the middle of putting in November and December in, so that then, and what I love about that is I'm a big believer in doing things when the flow is there. And so rather than having this thing on my to-do list that I'm always pushing back, now it creates this container where I'm like, oh, I've got like half an hour. I could go and play and do a couple of posts.
Did you just use the word play?
Playful. Oh my God. I'm like, how has it taken me this long? Because I've had, like, my biggest barrier to building a business last time and this time is always that working hard for money thing. Like, that conditioning is so strong for me, and I've come a long way, long way. But I feel like the level of let joy drive the bus, I'm like, what? Like, this is just like completely different viewpoint. So yeah, I really
100% aligned for you as a human to do that as well.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I feel like the system just gets this whole, I'm going to use the word depth. It's a whole other depth, because then you've got, the energy of what's actually going on in the universe as well. Excuse me. And I just find it really powerful. I feel like yeah, it's easier and easier and easier for me to voice the things, because I am very passionate about not just creating posts for the sake of it. Like, I hate that concept of volume posting. Like, yeah, you can do 3 posts a day, that's fine, but are they valuable posts? Are they actually useful for people and whatever? And, you know, different intentions, different whatever, that's fine, there's no judgment there. But for me, that doesn't feel aligned for me. So I want to make useful content, but I also don't want it to feel like I'm like slogging through, treacle trying to get there. Like, so yeah, this just makes it fun. And it's really nice to send, like, flick my team an email going, all right, October's ready to go for it. It's like,
and how are you finding it's being received? Like, have you noticed any?
yeah, I have, so I've always had this, I find reels trickier because I've always thought, like, and you're one of the people that's, so consistent with reels, and I know that there's so much value in terms of attracting new people to your ecosystem in doing reels. But the whole, like, lip syncing thing, or like, I just, yuck, like,
You've
it's
got to do
not
what feels right for you.
exactly.
Yeah.
But this way,
Yeah.
I have actually started to just systematize even the reels. So I feel like my resistance is going, and so my normal reach would be like 2,000 people, and now it's like 10,000 people. So yeah, it's making a big difference, because yeah, I feel like, because
it's actually changed your frequency. Listening to you,
exactly, this is,
it's
yes,
not so much the process as how it's changed your internal
correct.
frequency. It's
Yeah.
making you more magnetic because
Exactly
of that.
And yeah, because I just think back to, and I even look sometimes at posts back a bit. Like, if I'm looking for inspiration, I think, oh, and then some things I'm like, what the actual F? Like,
We all do
that's
that.
so not, but so out of alignment. And
Yeah,
I
not
just,
you.
I keep
Not
thinking,
being your you is you.
no, exactly. There's not my you is you. And then that means that I'm muddying the water. My bat signal is a little bit wonky. And, then there's no surprise if you get non-ideal clients turning up, because you're sending out a wonky bat signal. Like, it's on you. So yeah.
I love it. And it's so great to have this reflected back, that this is not just something that you buy and you put on the shelf and you think, wow, I'm going to get to that one day, but to actually be in a place where you're finding these big outcomes as a result of this.
Yeah.
I mean, and look, let me get into the story now, because it's...
Yes, please. I want to know.
It's more of a moment, like, rather than what I was doing back, if I go back to when I first started working on this project. So I went all in on human design for marketing at the beginning of 2023. So
yes.
coming up towards 2 years now. And in the beginning, I've got a business brain and a marketing brain. I'm like, you know what? This is not going to be a half-ass. This is
I'm going all in. Yep.
I'm going all in. And so I built a strategy around omnipresence and building my profile and becoming synonymous. And I knew that was going to take time. So from the beginning of 2023, that was my 100% focus. And I recall a few months into that, I'm in Emma Dunwoody, who's my human design mentor. I'm in her membership, and I watched a class on the transits, and it was by her mentor. So my mentor's mentor is really, her name's Kim Gould. She's really into all things transits. And if you go back, she started in learning human design in, I think, the 90s.
Wow.
So, like, decades ago.
The true.
Yeah, and at a stage in Australia, and she didn't have access to teachers, and we didn't have the internet like we do now.
Yeah,
and so she self-taught herself by tracking the transits.
Whoa.
Yes, this was an experiment for her to deepen her human design experiment.
That's very cool.
Isn't that interesting? So I'm like...
See, I want to know how old she was, because that sounds like a second life, midlife quest to me. It's like, right, now I have time to dive deep into something.
I think she's a really interesting and powerful human. And you know, she's like old school, like source, close to the source. But I watched this and then I just started getting so fascinated by the transits.
Yeah.
And so I started kind of tracking it for myself. And then I had this spark, like what if content was changed around this as well? So all of this is the lead up, but then on the day, it was like a bolt of imagine if I created a separate code for every gate that had content prompts. And I was just like, and it was a weekend, it was a Sunday. I couldn't get out, and it was in the morning. I couldn't get out of bed fast enough to start. Like I literally was at the coffee shop.
It's like, okay.
I started the project within an hour of the idea. It just was like, I just knew, I just was like, this is going to be dynamite. Like this is going to really help people. And then I was so excited, and this is like middle of last year. I feel like it was May, June actually.
Yeah.
And so then I set out on this thing where I decided that I would do, I can't even remember what it was now, but there's 64. So I think I thought I'll do 2 a day.
Oh yes, I have heard you say this before, and I'm like,
so
oh my goodness,
I'll do it in a month. And I was so kidding myself. Took me months. Took me like 4 months or something like that. And and then it's evolved since then. Then you know, it became pretty quickly. It became, you know what, I wanted to do a YouTube channel in a big way as part of my omnipresent strategy.
Yes, omnipresence is yes.
And so then had the idea to do it as the main thing on the YouTube channel.
So good.
It's been a labor of love, but we're at the end now.
Yes, I know. That's what I was just thinking when you said we're almost there. I'm like, oh
yeah. Well, I've finished filming all 64 gates, but there's editing to be done on the back end. But like we're at the point now, and it's going to actually feed a whole lot of other stuff once it's done as well. Like the guide, you heard it here first. I'm intending to embed the link to every YouTube episode.
Oh, yes.
I've done. So you can also watch the episode, and it's all linked into the guide.
So good. So
yeah, good. which will happen because we'll be at the full 64 gates by November. So that's going to happen in like another 6 weeks.
Oh, so good. Do you know what? As you're talking, you used the term before, body of work, and I feel like anyone who's listening that's had a big idea and gets overwhelmed by the amount of work that goes into it, I feel like there's something in me that wants to say, like, we're in this for the long game. Us people who are here to ripple out influence and positive contribution to the world. We're not just doing it as a quick one and done thing. So if it takes you a year to labor over something and create this body of work that will change the way people are doing things, so be it.
Be it. You know? I'm so here for that. And it's interesting actually that this project, I spoke about this, I'm on the Human Design podcast every month with Emma. Talk about the transits. And I spoke about this on her podcast, but I'll share it here as well. Like I've had moments when I wanted to quit because it wasn't lighting me up. It's just a lot of production.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have to film myself. There's multiple camera angles and then get the footage off the cameras. And it's been a
palaver
thing. Yeah. And I don't I feel like, I don't know what it is, but with the YouTube channel, it's not like the podcast where I'm having a chat. It's like, hello, I'm here.
Yes, it's more
so that it's just been a thing. And when I was halfway into it, I was like, shoot me now. I can't keep going. But I also knew that I had spent so much time and money, a lot of money, like more than I've ever spent on anything, to be honest, that stopping halfway would be like never having
an option.
It just wasn't an option. But I had people around me saying, cut and run, girl. What are you doing? Like, and I'm like, there is no part of me, absolutely none, that is willing to not see this through. I just have to get better at it. And that's what we did as a team. I really
there's an invitation there, isn't there?
Yeah, like I got Sidra, who is the senior VA on my team, to project manage me. I'm like, I don't I want to do as little as humanly possible,
So
because
you tell me where to show up and what to do, and I will do that.
and like, and it still has come with a lot of me having to do, because I'm the one who has to set the cameras up. The footage, like,
there's practicalities.
but compared to what it was,
yes,
it absolutely improved.
Yeah.
And now we are at the point where, because of this footage, which is now infiltrating Google search, when you search for anything to do with marketing in a particular gate, you're going to find my videos. We are dominating the whole freaking thing.
This is the equivalent of, what's the one that always, it's there's a lady who does the Gene Keys specifically, and if you just say
Christine
gate, blah, blah,
Ng.
blah. Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, she's
like all over things as well. And I'm like, you are the equivalent of that in marketing.
I love to hear that. And what we're seeing on the website, because we also have the blog each gate, and then we embed the YouTube video into that as well, is the traffic to the website has grown by 800%.
Whoa, that's so cool.
Yeah. So, and this is the long game, right? Like, I knew from the beginning of 2023 that this was the long game, that I'm not like, this is happening. It's just going to take time, and we're going to do it properly. And it's not all going to be like, everything's not going to happen fast.
But how satisfying does it feel to be almost at the finish line?
Oh yeah, it's brilliant.
Like, it's so good. And 800%, and increase of income, and the amount of people that you influence.
This whole series has delivered so much for others like yourself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And it also got me onto Emma's podcast every month. It made me an authority on the transits, and she's got millions of downloads on her podcast, and I'm on there every month. Like, it's done so much for my business. But I could have used my design as a reason to stop. I could have said it's not lighting me up, and therefore I shouldn't be doing it.
Oh, this is such a good conversation. Yes. Yes. Because
I had this briefly with Emma as well, because we were talking about this, and she said what she does, and this is irrelevant for any generators, and also it's a great principle, is instead of thinking about right now, is this lighting me up?
Yes, this is what I was just about to say.
Yes. Yeah. When I finish this, will I be satisfied?
Yeah. Yeah.
So will I be in my aligned? Will I be aligned to the high frequency of my expression? Yeah. Will I be satisfied? Fuck yes.
Yes, exactly.
Am I? I'm so satisfied now. I'm so excited.
Yeah. I also, you're reminding me of because I book coach as well. And when we get to about 85%, 100% of the time, people will have a massive, this sucks. No one wants to read it. Who the fuck was I to even think about writing a book, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay. And I actually talk about it now in my sales call about book coaching, because it happens to me as well. And I'm like, at about, it's not always 85%. For some people it's earlier, but at about the kind of like, we're almost there, but the drudgery of the rinse and repeat of the actual writing or creating something or whatever. And it gets so heavy, and it can be very easy for people to go, oh no, this is too, like, it's too much for me, or I'm opting out or whatever. And I'm like, no, this is part of the creative process. This is actually, like, if I was to, because I love starting things and I love finishing things, but I'm not actually that great at the rinse and repeat stuff. And that is, but I am learning that when I turn up for the rinse and repeat for things that are really important to me and aligned, that's the important thing, then I build self-trust in myself that I actually have the capacity to stick and stay when it's important. I also conversely have a very low tolerance for anything that makes me feel out of alignment. And that is a very different feeling, because you can feel aligned and still frustrated with the doing of the thing. Which is what you're talking about. And it's
I'm completely aligned to having finished this.
Correct. Exactly. And so you need to, it's almost like throwing the future out in front of you and then just doing the drudgery action that actually gets you to there. This isn't
meant to be easy. Like, it's just not. It's work. That thing work where we, and I know, it's a joy to do this work, but it's still work.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But yeah, at the end of it, far out. Like you just think about, like, I feel a little bit the same. Like my podcast has had many, many, many different versions of,
Iterations.
yeah, iterations in pivoting, etc. But I look back and go, oh my God, it's almost 2 years since I started doing a podcast twice a week. And I have managed to do that. Well, for a year now I only do one because I saw the light, because that's ridiculous.
It's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. But yeah, because it's something that like I do believe there's wisdom in all of us who are in business building a body of work where someone can come and marinate in who you are, what you stand for, and it's that
I call it getting lost in the rabbit hole. Like I have
exactly.
have a really I know that, and like even with this podcast, like some people binge 100 episodes over a weekend. Like I can tell when that happens. Like there's just such a big body of or such a deep rabbit warren.
Exactly. But that is good. And it doesn't have to be a podcast or a YouTube channel. Like do it the way that you want to do it. If you're a long form writer, go and get a Substack. Like, it doesn't matter. But as long as your perfect people can access the youiest version of you in a body of work somewhere to marinate in, because I've done it before. Like my current business coach at the moment, I found I had downloaded her book about 18 months ago. On recommendation from someone else that I was following, downloaded it, completely forgot that it was on my iPad, because it's actually not my iPad, it's my husband's. So I'm like, and then the original person posted about that book again. I was like, shit, I downloaded that a year ago. I started reading it on a Saturday afternoon and I finished it in the middle of winter, underneath the bed covers, next to my snoring husband, by the light of my phone, because that is how fucking amazing. And I was like, this. And it's really interesting because when she was in the middle of writing that book, she, all of us are in the middle of our work. Like we are being invited to stand up, and that comes with, all the voice and visibility stuff. But it's like, you go first. I am now in a very high ticket mastermind because I read a book and then bought a couple of like
so
little,
interesting.
like that is the definition of giving someone. And don't filter your, like, good girls do not lead revolutions. I feel like that maybe is going to be the title of my book. It's like, stop with the good girls shit. Stop with trying to like appease or approve.
Stop trying to people please, which by the way is so hardwired into me, but yes.
100%. I mean, I think any woman who's grown up in the patriarchy has been conditioned to be a particular way, to be safe and, whatever. But you don't lead revolutions from that space, and you don't shift paradigms, and you don't create amazing bodies of work that will ripple through for centuries and centuries and centuries. And that's what I'm here for. So fuck the bloody smallness and and that's why when I saw myself in that overwhelmed thing, I'm like, I'm not actually down for this, because that is not actually aligned to the future that I see.
Circuit breaker time.
Yeah, exactly. So what can we do instead?
Love it. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This conversation has been brilliant.
Yes, I knew it was going to be. We bounce off each other.
Amazing. Love it. And for those that are listening, I actually have 2 shout outs that are in my head now. So the first one is, if you don't own first, if you do own the Cosmic Content Codes Guide, I hope this has been a big kick up the proverbial bottom if you're not using it, to make sure that you do take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And this is coming from somebody who's an expert in storytelling and content, by the way, not just from me, who is finding this to be an extremely transformational. And we said that word on its own doesn't mean much, but you know what? She's getting more joy, and also that's working for her to grow her magnetism.
Exactly.
So that's the first thing. Second thing, if you don't own this, make sure you go to the show notes where you can get your hands on it, and there is an exclusive coupon code in the show notes to get 10% off.
Juicy.
So do that.
100%.
And then number 3, and this is time sensitive, I am currently selling a brand new offer, which is only for those of you who are human design coaches, mentors, professionals, consultants, to take you behind the scenes of what we just spoke about, my exact strategy for building my own human design business, my offer ecosystem, the messaging, the products, the tech, all of it in a small group. we're almost 50% sold out, and I've only talked about this on stories so far.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. So if you're listening and you're like, oh my God, I want that, you better hurry. So drop into my Instagram DM and let me know before all the spots are gone. And that's it. That's it for this week.
What a cool offer. That is a very good example of giving the people what they want. It's like, 100%. How does she
and
do
it was
that?
another, by the way, it was another complete intuitive hit. I was on a massage table when this idea landed.
Do you know where I get most of my ideas either come to me in dreams or when I'm floating? So I float twice a month. So yeah,
beautiful.
It's like my nervous system.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, we could talk about this offline, but I'll quickly say it here. One of the girls that comes to my yoga class, because I teach yoga once a week, is studying to be a masseuse. And so I got a free 90-minute massage at her house. And I'll never forget that this is the moment that I was like, I need to be helping more of these human design qualified people build their business. So there you go.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, beautiful. Bye, everyone. There are heaps more resources in the show notes. I can't wait to be back in your ears again soon. Bye for now.